Welcome back, everyone. This is a video of Chapter 2 for our COSP230 course. What's involved in this project is there's going to be two screens, not just one. And we're also going to introduce how to get an image view widget into a project and a button. Now, I am going to refer you mostly to the PowerPoint slides for Chapter 2. That will have the majority of the instructions you will need to do this. Let me go through the widgets here on the first page, which is our main activity. This is just what you get when you create a project. You always get one screen. First, there is a text view, and I have just put the words bruschetta recipe in here. I've given it an ID, which is txt title. Once again, I've used the strings.xml file. So you'll want to look at that in the PowerPoint slides. And the text size for this is 40 SP. Now the second widget here is a image view, which I have called IMG recipe. And within that image view, we have obviously a PNG file of a bruschetta. Now, in order to get this actual PNG file involved with the image view widget, you must get the bruschetta.png file into this drawable folder, which is part of the res folder. Let me circle that for you so you see where it is. It's right here. Now you'll need to look at the PowerPoint slides for Chapter 2 for the instructions as to how to get the bruschetta.png file into the drawable folder. By the way, this project you're looking at right now is not one you're going to turn in. This is just a sample to show you how to do similar projects that you will turn into this. Similar, not exactly the same, but pretty similar. Okay, they're drawings. All right, and then finally, we have a button. That is a button widget. You can see it right here. I've called it BTN recipe. I've given it, its text is these words, view recipe. And if you want to look up the text attributes for it, text size is 36 SP. All right. Now, if you look at the other screen, now, again, I will refer you to the PowerPoints for Chapter 2 to see how to add a second screen, which is called recipe. That's what we're going to call it, recipe. It has its own XML file, and on this one, we just have a whole bunch of text views. There are 7 of them to be exact. Again, the PowerPoints for Chapter 2 will show you what text goes in each one and what font size you need to make each one. Also, I might add that both of these previews, both the first page, the main activity, and the second page, the recipe, are constraint layouts. So each time you drag and drop a new widget onto the screen here, every time you drag one widget on, you must click the magic wand button to get the constraints correct and make that little red arrow disappear. So every time you add a widget, before you add the next one, click the magic wand button. That is also mentioned in the Chapter 2 PowerPoints. Now, when you actually run this project, this will be the first page that shows up. You're going to click on this button to display this second page. In order to do that, you must access the Java file for the main activity. Here is the Java file for the main activity. This has the code in it. I'm going to run through this, and I'm going to comment out a good chunk of this code and just show you what happens when you do something like this. So I will do this. Whoops. There we go. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is create an object of the button class. We're doing some object-oriented programming here. Now, these lines that are not coming in and out, this super.onCreate and this set content view, we're calling a function there, they're all part of this method called onCreate. That is given to you when you create a page. That's already in the Java code. First, you must create a button object, and if I type button, you'll notice that it comes up in red. It says it cannot resolve the symbol button. Well, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and hit the Enter key, and this little menu pops up, and the first thing it says is import class. And by doing so, it imports the button class into this Java file, and now the error is done. Well, I have to give the object a name. I'll just call it button with a lowercase b. And here you must do this. You put button in parentheses, and now you must call this function called findViewById. All right, and then a parameter to this function is you have to tell it which widget you want to find. This is why we give our widgets descriptive IDs, so we know which is which. In this case, it is the button. And then you must put a semicolon at the end of the line, because that's what Java wants you to do. So that creates an object of the button class. Now, from here, you take that object, that's button with a lowercase b, and you type a dot, and now in this menu, you want to select this method, set on click listener. We'll double click it. And now you want to type the word new, all lowercase. And then, after hitting a space, you want to select this, view.onClickListener. Watch what happens when I double click this. It actually automatically creates an on-click method. This is an example of what we call event-driven programming. We are going to type code in this on-click method, but the code within the on-click method is not executed until the button is actually clicked. Clicking the button is an event, and that event of clicking the button triggers the code within the on-click method to be executed. Now, what code goes in there? Well, we have to do a start activity method. We're going to call this method, and as a parameter of that method, we must give it an intent. So let's see, there must be a certain intent in here. So what you're going to say is main activity dot this, that's a common keyword in Java. Okay, for this new intent object, you have to first say where you're at right now. That's on the main activity. Then you have to say where you're going. That is recipe.class. So the first parameter of this intent method, or this intent constructor, is you first say, what activity am I on right now? We're on the main activity. And then the second parameter is, well, where do you want to go? That's to the second screen, which is recipe.class. One more thing. You see these words package context that showed up? You don't type that. That shows up automatically. You don't have to type that. Okay, since I added code to this, I'm going to have to recompile. Now, before I do, let me just show you the recipe.java. This is the Java code for the recipe class. Since all we're doing is displaying what's on that screen, you don't need to add code to the recipe.java. This is code that is given to you. It is created automatically when you create a screen. You do not, for this recipe class, you do not need to add anything to it. Just leave that as it is. The only thing you do is, here is the code for the main activity. Now, since I have to recompile this, I'm going to pause the recording, and I'll bring you back when the compiling is finished. Okay, the compiling is finished, and as you can see, here is my emulator running with my front page. There's the text view, there's the picture of the bruschetta, and here's the button. Now, if everything works correctly, when I click this button, we'll see the second page. And we do. There is the recipe. Now, if I want to go back to the front page, up here, there is a back button. And you're back there, and now you're on the second page. That is how event-driven programming works in Android Studio. Of course, you should also look at the recording as to how to record this app so you can turn it into Canvas. If you have any questions, please send me an email at kmuldrow@lbcc.edu.